Hello students, in this session I'll be explaining you the structure and the mechanism of human heart. Basically, the heart is the muscular pumping organ. It is located in the thoracic cavity between the lungs, and the size of the heart is approximately the size of a human fist. So now let us focus towards the structure and the parts of the human heart. The heart consists of four chambers, that is two auricles and two ventricles. And what is the function of auricles? Auricles are the blood receiving chamber, whereas the ventricles are the blood pumping chamber. Right? So, how many chambers are there? There are four chambers. The chambers are as follows, that is, left atrium or auricle, right atrium or auricle, left ventricle, and right ventricle. Okay? So now, other than the auricles and ventricles, we also have valves. Before that, I would like to tell you that the right side of the heart is being divided by left side with the help of dividing wall called septum. Okay? The other parts of the human heart are pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins, aorta, vena cava. This is the upper vena cava and this is the lower vena cava. And the remaining parts I have already introduced, that is left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium and right ventricle. So basically these are the parts of the human heart. So now I was telling you that apart from the auricles and ventricles, there is presence of valves in the human heart. So I'll show you the valves in this picture so it is easy to identify. So here you have to understand first what are the valves, right? So actually the valves are nothing but the regulators. What is meant by regulators? They are like controlling something, right? So they control the flow of blood inside the heart. So they decide the flow of blood from both the auricles as well as the ventricles. So how do they decide? They decide like when it should flow and when it should not flow. So all those things. The flow of blood is completely decided by the valves. So now let us look at which are the valves which are present. The first valve is the pulmonary valve. So this is a pulmonary valve. So this valve is present between the, which chamber is this? It is the right ventricle and this is the pulmonary, what is this? Pulmonary artery, right? So pulmonary valve is present between right ventricle and pulmonary artery. So the next valve is the tricuspid valve. So the tricuspid valve is present here. Very easy to remember, tricuspid valve. It is present between the right atrium and the right ventricle. What is present? The bicuspid valve is present. Easy to remember, it is tricuspid valve. Right ventricle and right atrium and right ventricle, there is presence of tricuspid valve. Okay, so it is easy to remember RTR. R for right atrium, T for tricuspid valve and R for right ventricle. Okay, and the third valve is the bicuspid valve. It is present between the left atrium and the left ventricle. It is the bicuspid valve. Easy to remember, LBV. L for left atrium, B for bicuspid valve and left ventricle. Okay, and the fourth valve is the aortic valve. The aortic valve is present here. It is present between the this is the left ventricle and the aorta. It is present between the left ventricle and this is the aorta. Okay. So these are the four valves. Which are the four valves? One is the pulmonary valve, which is present here. Next, tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve, and the aortic valve, which is present here itself. Okay. So these are the four valves. So now let us understand how does the heart functions. As I said you, the heart consists of auricles and the ventricles, right? The heart consists of auricles and the ventricles. Auricles are also called as, it is called as atrium. Auricles are also called as atrium, right? So these auricles and ventricles have the muscular walls. They have the muscular walls. So these muscular walls, they help in contraction and relaxation. Then why do these auricles and ventricles have to contract and relax? So let us look at that. Before that, you have to remember that the red color thing which is present here is the oxygenated blood, and the blue color one is the deoxygenated blood. Right? The red color denotes the oxygenated blood, and the blue color denotes the deoxygenated blood. What is deoxygenated blood? Also, I told you, it is the blood which is poor in oxygen and rich in carbon dioxide. Right? Now, let us try to understand stepwise what happens. So, what happens here is auricles, they receives the blood. How do they receive the blood? So, the auricles, they receives the blood from the lungs. They receives the oxygenated blood. Right? So now while receiving the blood, the auricles will be in the relaxation state. Because something, for example, if we are going to fill something, what happened? There should be some space, right? Similarly, when the blood is entering to the auricles need some space. So the auricles are in the relaxation state. Right? So this relaxation state of the auricles are called as the diastole. What is meant by the diastole? Diastole is the relaxation state of the heart. Now once the sufficient blood receives by the auricles, what happened? It is mean like both the auricles and right auricle and left auricle, both they receives the blood. So as they receives the blood in both the places, what happened here? The right auricle receives the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. I erase it. Right auricle receives the deoxygenated blood, and the left auricle receives the oxygenated blood. Right? So this blood enters to the now auricles. As a result, now what happened? The auricles are in the relaxation state. Now once completely it is filled, once the auricles are filled, now what happened? The auricles try to contract. As a result of this, what happened? As I told you, the bicuspid valve and the tricuspid valve, they start opening, because something we are going to push from up, what happened? The bottom will open. So similarly, as a result of the blood which is filled in the auricles, both in the right and the left auricles, what happened? Now the auricles contracted. As a result, what happened? The bicuspid valve and the tricuspid valve, they both opens. As the valve opens, what happened? The blood start now flowing into ventricles. I mean, the blood from the left atrium or auricle flows into left ventricle, and the blood from the right, it flow into right ventricle. Right? Now both, what happened? The ventricles here, the blood from the right atrium flow into right ventricle, and the blood from the left atrium flows into left ventricle. As a result of this flow, what happened? The ventricles will now come into relaxation state. Earlier it was in contraction state, as this region was relaxing. Now this region got contracted. It got contracted. So now the ventricles come to relaxation state, because now what happened, the blood got filled into the ventricle as a result. Now once it got filled, both the valves now start closed. So now the blood which entered to the left ventricle, now it passes to the aorta because it is a oxygenated blood. Now from the oxygenated blood through aorta, it reaches to various parts of the body where the cells uses this oxygenated blood. And the deoxygenated blood now here, which enter to right ventricle, what happens to the deoxygenated blood? It enters to pulmonary artery. It is pulmonary artery. The deoxygenated blood goes through pulmonary artery and it reaches to the lungs. It flows towards the lungs. Similarly, what happened? The blood from the left ventricle flow towards the aorta. Why it flows towards the aorta? Because through aorta it is transported to different parts of the body. Yes? What happened here? Once again I'll tell you. The blood from the lungs enter to left atrium. From left atrium through bicuspid valve it enter to left ventricle. Right? The oxygenated blood from the left ventricle, what happened? It goes to aorta and passes to different parts of the body. Right? Now what happened? The deoxygenated blood enters to right atrium and through tricuspid valve it enters to right ventricle. Now this deoxygenated blood goes through pulmonary artery. From pulmonary artery it reaches to the lungs where the blood which contains the carbon dioxide is thrown out and the remaining blood again they get oxygenated. So now what you have to understand is, here in this process the blood enters to the heart 2 times, right? This is the one cycle. So in one cycle the blood enters to the heart 2 times. Hence we call it as double circulation is taking place in the case of human beings. Okay, hope you understood. I have explained you very slowly this part because it is very important to understand this concept. Once you understood, it is very easy, right? The point which I have mentioned here, let us once recall. So as I told you, the heart is a muscular pumping organ. It is located at the thoracic cavity. Where it is located? It is between the lungs, right? So the heart has the different chambers. Chambers of the heart are right atrium, left atrium. I just show you here the right atrium and the left atrium, right ventricle and the left ventricle, right? So why these chambers are present in the heart? They may ask you a question, because to prevent the mixing of oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, right? Now the upper chamber of the left atrium, it relaxes. When it relaxes, when the oxygenated blood enters to it, right? From where it enters from the lungs. Now the left atrium contracts, and what happened? The blood from the left atrium moves to left ventricle, and from left ventricle it goes to which region? Through aorta. Right? Now the deoxygenated blood, what happened? From the body, it reaches to the right upper chamber, that is to the right atrium. From the right atrium, it goes to right ventricle when the right atrium contracts. So the separation of right and left side of the heart prevents mixing up of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, and it also allows the efficient supply of oxygen. Very important. Why it is prevented? Because to allow the efficient supply of oxygen to the body and also to maintain the body temperature. This point is also very important. Okay, and the last point which I have told you is human heart. In the human heart the blood passes through the heart 2 times in one cardiac cycle. Hence That type of circulation is called as double circulation. Okay? Hope you understood. Thank you.